As you can tell, I just reinstalled this game today. I don't really know what the hell I'm doing, but it looks like Tony's here, so...
Greetings!
Hey, how's it going?
It's going alright. Had a little bit of a delay with some stuff. I got thrown a last-minute tech job I needed to work on, so I didn't get to eat lunch for about 2 hours after I normally do.
The Apple stuff again?
No. This time my dad's computer, his laptop that he doesn't hardly ever use, and decided, I'm gonna take it out today, even though it hasn't been updated in 6 months.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, so I'm just now, actually almost finished with it.
Nice. Well, that's good, at least.
So, but yeah, I mean, I'm here. About stumbled into, falling over everything, trying to get everything taken care of, so. But,
Yeah,
I'm not dead. I'm okay.
Not
just
yet.
klutz. But, yeah. So, I mean, today's just kind of, I guess, since we're not doing a traditional session of Dungeons & Dragons today, I know that recently you've put out signups for D&D, and the response was, well, what's the proper word here? Overwhelming, I guess?
It was way more than I thought it would be, for sure. I was thinking maybe, okay, we'll probably get a group, 5 people, not including me, obviously. So, I was thinking, yeah, we'll probably get 5 people that were saying they're interested and whatnot. 17
Absolutely.
people later.
Yeah. I mean, it's huge.
Yeah. It's really cool,
I mean-
though. I really like when people want to try something and they're provided an avenue to maybe do so.
Absolutely. And see, the thing is that when it comes to something like Dungeons & Dragons, it is an imposing and intimidating beast for anybody who hasn't really done it before.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is why offering something like this is something I kind of wanted to do for all of our newbies, as well as anybody else who wants to stop by and ask anything about it, because I remember when I first started, it was really overwhelming, and as good as my DM was, I did have to learn a bit of it on my own. Quite a bit of it, actually.
It's kind of daunting.
It was a little bit daunting, and so as a result, my experiences are different from your typical Dungeons & Dragons player, for the sheer reason that I actually have more experience as a dungeon master than I do as a player.
It's kind of unusual.
It's a little bit backwards, but the thing is that it also sort of comes with the territory. When you DM, you become that guy hey, do you know how to do this? And it's well, yeah, I can DM. Would you be willing to do that for our group?
Yeah, you just get job after job. It's like being a healer in any MMO.
Pretty much, it's like queuing for, queuing as support or queuing as tank in
anything,
Warcraft.
Really.
Pretty much.
Because everybody always wants to just do damage in every game.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where it's okay, no problem. I mean, I don't mind doing it. I like being a player with what little experience I have had of it, but it's not all about being a player. Knowing the systems is really important, so that way when it comes time to imparting said information, teaching people,
Yeah.
you gotta know your stuff.
And I mean, there's obviously the don't hate the player, hate the game mentality that has to be taken into account.
Absolutely. And see, the thing that's a little bit tricky as a DM is that it is a set of different mentalities. And what I mean by that is it's kind of my job to more or less, I have to play as all the NPCs, I have to play as all the creatures. So more or less what it does is it requires me to play all creatures with the design of giving my players not only a good time, but to also attempt to kill them too. So it's kind of an awkward balance.
Yeah. Well, I think
Hello.
Vel is eating right now, but he was in here pretty early. I think he probably is going to be the first one to start picking away with the questions.
Wait.
Good.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the thing, if you want to come in here on the TeamSpeak, that's absolutely fine. We can, talk in questions, stuff like that. Or if you guys are in the chat and you just happen to have any questions, feel free to get them there, and as soon as we see them, we'll we'll move to them.
I was saying, obviously, like, for really specific stuff, it would be better to be in the TeamSpeak and chatting, having a conversation and stuff, but try to get to the written stuff as well. It probably just won't take as high priority, honestly.
Yeah, I would probably agree with something like that.
I don't really know what he means by I'm going to heat up some gross sag.
I feel like sog, maybe like a type of food.
It's a type of
It's
Indian
a
food.
leaf-based dish.
It's
eaten in
basically a
South
spinach curry.
Asia. Ah! Hello, okay then. Hello, Val.
Hello. How are you, gentlemen, this evening?
Doing alright. Just working on getting some stuff taken care of on my dad's computer, while also trying to hold a conversation with a bird that is quite loud today. Yes, if anybody hears
loud,
pretty much. Yeah, if you hear beeping in the background, that's my pet bird, my evil little parrot. Actually, no, it's just a noisy little cockatiel is all. And because it's hot, that equates to noisy for the bird. So the summer's a real fun time with it. So, but yeah. Main concerns are character... Okay, so first off, real quick, I already see this one in the chat from comment. Main concerns are pretty much character creation stuff. Is there a quick reference for classes and races? There kind of is, but there also kind of isn't. Like, so here's what we mean by that. In each of the player handbooks, which, if you're going to be participating in these one-off sessions, you're going to need them, but we will provide. At the beginning of each textbook that there is quick references for each class and each race available. So I can take a look online and see if there's like a quick guide to Dungeons and Dragons classes and races that would be applicable to our version. So, but the thing is that for every version, there's different classes and different races and stuff. For the most part, they all are pretty much the same, though. In terms of like across versions. And see, what's also kind of different is that in different handbooks that specify the different themes, or in monster manuals, there are all kinds of different races that are not available through like regular, which can still be used, but you kind of have to work with your dungeon master about it. So in fact, actually, I found a really good link here, and don't be scared by it, it's just a wiki. And what it is this is actually a link here that I just threw in the chat here, and I got deleted.
Yeah.
Because Moobot's a little over aggressive today. Oh, that's fun. It won't let me send it. It says it won't send because it was identical to the previous one that I sent less than 30 seconds ago.
And then write a short little nonsense message and then send it again.
There we go.
There we go. Okay. So here's the thing. So here's the thing with the link. The link has a lot of stuff. The only ones that we are allowing in our campaign as a basic guideline are the ones that are in Player Handbooks 1, 2, and 3. So I'm not allowing races from monster manuals, like subclasses.
Oh, no vampires?
No, nothing from Eberron, nothing from Forgotten Realms, Heroes of Shadow, Feywild, or Dark Sun. I prefer to keep them to the core 3 books.
You can do so many fucking characters, good lord, man.
You really can, it is kind of crazy. And I actually need to step aside for a moment, so I will be right back momentarily. But this link here that is in the chat, this is for all the basic classes for Player Handbooks 1, 2, and 3, to kind of give you a base idea on what you want to start looking at for your character stuff. When I get back, I'll talk about what kind of goes into making each class and what have you. But I'll be back in just a moment.
You will not have to buy the books. I can link you to some PDFs of what you'll need. So you will need a device that is capable of opening a PDF file.
Oh man, I don't know if I can do that.
I was about to say, if you're hearing me right now, you're fine, probably. Getting your bearings. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing in this game, man. I haven't played this in a year and a half. Last time I logged on was February of 2014.
Put me off. That link is to answer a general question that happened before you were here about a quick reference for possible races and characters. PDFs are provided, and if possible, and I think tablets can usually use them.
I will actually provide the links to the PDFs as soon as I get to a safe area that I can alt-tab. Alright.
And only the player handbooks 1, 2, and 3, which it looks like, if I'm reading this right, covers a lot of the races are fairly limited, but the classes, there are still a lot more than I expected.
Yeah, there are a lot of classes. Basically, think of like your favorite fantasy, like RPG archetype or whatever, even from anime. There's probably a class you could do.
Right, so, like, whenever I put in my little form, like I had mentioned, I have played 4 briefly. A campaign with 4 briefly. It failed after like 2 sessions or whatever.
Yeah.
But, you know, I was a Dragonborn fighter, I think. And we only had the first set of classes to choose from, and now I'm just looking at there's even more than that.
Yeah.
I guess some of it's more for when Tony gets back, and so I'll hold additional questions until that. Although I guess he actually physically switches off his mic rather than mutes himself.
Yeah, I think so. I usually just mute myself. It's a bit easier.
Yeah. Hotkey.
Yeah, exactly. I think I wrote down no experience. You were not the only one. There was at least, I think, 7 or 8 people that had literally 0 experience written down.
So for these one-offs that you're discussing, who's DMing them?
It will be Tony for each one, and we actually have the basic we have one that's in works almost that he's working on right now, and we have the premise for 3 to 4 more all ready to go.
Okay. And these are so unlike the Age of Change, which is a fairly long campaign. Is that what I understand? These are going to be simply one-offs, just so you can accommodate everybody.
Yeah. So basically, like the campaign is every however many sessions we do it, like 3 to 4 hours. A one-off might be 4 to 6, but everything will be encapsulated in one session.
And part of my concern with that is, would experience be enhanced for such an encounter?
Yes.
That way you actually feel like you're getting stronger throughout the session rather than logging through as a level 1 and then that's it?
The one that we're planning for you with some other people that we already threw together, yes, for sure. The problem with one-offs is the leveling thing is apparently really hard to do because that leveling stuff usually happens between the sessions.
That way you can read up and pick the right thing.
Exactly, so we're kind of having to sidestep that, which is unfortunate in a way, but probably for the best for people that have never touched a pen and paper game like this. Or, like, don't even know how that stuff works, because it might be too daunting. Like, I think the basic idea for the groups that have 0 to very, very, very limited experience at all with this stuff is to basically get them in, make them feel like they're doing some role-playing and stuff with a character that they wanted to do, and try the mechanics out.
Okay.
I'm actually going to make a command for all these links that Nightbot will be able to spam for people.
And so, whenever we initially enrolled, I guess, for this whole event, we need a Roll20.net account. Is that correct? Is that something that's
Yes.
takes a long time?
Nope, that's basically like signing up for any forum site or whatever. You just put in your email, your username, and all that stuff, and you get added to a campaign. You just click join, and you're in. I'm not really sure a lot of how Roll20 works. Again, that's something Tony would be able to elaborate on. And Meowth is saying D&D is so big and scary. You know, it really isn't. It is a core set of mechanics for, like, combat and situational stuff, and everything else is your imagination.
Alright, I've returned. Apologies for the delay.
That's not a problem.
Alright, so
Welcome back.
That's good, it better not be a problem.
I'm making a Nightbot command to spam links to the specific PDF books for people if they want.
Excellent. So yeah, the only books that our players need to worry about are going to be player handbooks 1, 2, and 3. Exactly how many licks are in the center to the center of a Tootsie Pop according to the owl.
Alright, so Tony, I have a question.
Great, let's hear it.
Okay, so my experience with classes are fairly limited, and there's much more to choose from. I've done a little bit of reading, but are there any race-restricted classes?
Race-restricted classes. Okay. That's a good question. Is there something else to go with that?
And then I was wondering, I think I wound up on a D&D 3 site. Are there class, like, changes/promotions that ever happen? I mean,
Okay.
I'm not sure that would happen in a one-off game, but...
So classes and promotions, the way that it works in D&D 4e is there's only your traditional level up stuff, and then there is the increase of paths that are the heroic, paragon, and epic tiers.
Okay.
These are things that are like, okay, you get this additional capability with your character when it hits level 11 or level 21.
Okay.
So no crazy stuff like that. In terms of race-restricted classes, as far as I know, there isn't necessarily any restrictions on it. However, of course, there are certain classes that do work better with certain races.
Okay. So
Like, there's natural...
there's synergies between race and class, but there's no exclusions.
Correct. So, like,
Okay.
for instance, let's use for an example the Wizard class from Player Handbook 1. It's a class that primarily keys itself using the abilities of Intelligence, Wisdom, and Dexterity. So, those are the stats you might want to look for your character getting an improvement on in your racials. Each racial has set stat improvements that it can take.
Mhm.
So, for instance, Dragonborns, which are basically gigantic lizard people, personally one of my favorite races, theirs ties into strength and charisma for their racial bonuses. So that's not to say you can't have a Dragonborn wizard, but what it is saying is that you're not going to get the best use out of having a Dragonborn as a wizard, because you're not going to get the benefits that are tangible for the stat increases. But say you look at a race like Eladrin. Eladrin's stat bonuses come to Dexterity and Intelligence. Hey! Now that's a class that could work well with a wizard. Synergizes well with its primary stat, as well as a tertiary statistic. So there are some classes that will inherently work better with other races, but that's not to say you can play pretty much whatever you want to.
Okay. Thank you.
Alright, so
problem.
for the chat now, exclamation mark PHB for player handbook, and then 1, 2, or 3 after will give you a link to the appropriate one. And anybody can use that command.
So each class, or each book has different classes, different races, different types of things to worry about for each one. Now, where do I go with this? Well, first of all, let me actually answer Meowth's question here. When is the roleplay account due? So, right now, we don't necessarily have a timetable on, like, the roleplay account, but when it comes to making the account on Roll20, just make it. It's not that hard. Doesn't take that long. And then, like, when it gets time to throw you into a campaign and what have you, like, that'll come along as we actually get closer to the campaign.
Yeah. Maybe
So, like,
just
if you
start
just don't-
thinking about what class you're thinking of.
Yeah, start thinking about class and race. Like, you don't have to worry about building the entire class and stuff, like, immediately. But start having an idea. It'll make things go a little bit quicker. Okay, so Comet asks in chat, aside from clerics and bards, what are other support-based classes? So, for support-based classes, you do have your cleric, which can, you know, go one of two different ways. It can be like a battle cleric, or it can be more of a devoted cleric, so...
They're arguably the support class, though, right? Like, I've looked at their skills, and they're all really helpful.
So here's the thing. Clerics are healers, basically, as
Yeah.
well as fighters. They can kind of play in either direction. Another one that's a little bit more overlooked, that's a little bit more of a... it has a little bit more damage. It doesn't necessarily have as much heals, and it kind of helps buff allies, is the Warlord. Warlord is a little bit more battle-ready in that, like, what it does is it has some damage that it does, but then it allows you to choose your allies to do different things with buffs and increases and stuff like that. It can debuff allies and, you know, stuff like that. The Warlord's main support tactic is to make other people in the party kind of do your dirty work, but you help them do that dirty work. So, like, you kind of play a little bit of a back role in that you're basically saying, like, hey, I'm gonna do this, you're gonna go in and do this next.
I'm gonna answer Meowth quickly. You are accepted into a campaign yet. We're just not sure who with. But yes, you are color-coded accordingly.
So generally, like, let me also explain that for people in here who may be a part of the one-shots that have signed up. So here's essentially how it's gonna work. You've signed up, you're gonna be in a campaign. We're working on determining the schedule exactly of what campaigns are going to be run when, which we do have a pretty good idea of that so far. But, like, in what groups that we're gonna assign to each campaign, that's what we're not entirely sure of yet,
Sure.
and we are working on that. What'll end up happening is, more likely than not, it will be probably... I would say it would be about 2 weeks heads up that actually
Minimum 2 weeks.
2 weeks minimum.
Yeah.
Ideally, what I would like to try to do is have a 3-week buffer where it's like, hey, this campaign is going to be run on this day. This is your 3 weeks, you know, heads up. 2 weeks before, I'm going to be having, and this is going to go for every campaign as well, because I mean, we are going to be explaining some of the stuff here, but there's going to be a lot more in-depth stuff with it. 2 weeks before the campaign, what'll be done is that I'll be hosting a how do I D&D sort of thing, and what it will do is it'll go over a lot more in depth, like what classes, races, like how to build characters, how to do a little bit of role play, the combat mechanics you need to know, as well as build your character in that day. So at that
Like a
point,
workshop.
Basically, yeah, it'll be a D&D workshop, more or less, where people will get to come in, they'll have their questions that they're going to have, but we're going to have a lot to go over, so you can pretty much think of it as your D&D 101 course, more or less.
There's also that podcast we did, by the way, that is still up.
Yes, the where do I start from... God, is it really that long?
It's been like 2 years or something. It's been a long time.
It has been a long time. But, like, it's basically going to be incredibly encouraged, especially for people who don't have any experience with D&D, that you show up to the workshop.
Absolutely.
Because that's also where we're really going to try and build your characters. I want the characters built and done, so that way when I have to do all the hard work of plugging them into the campaigns, I don't have to try and play catch-up with a bunch of people going, hey, what's this, what's this, what's that. So that's kind of what we're looking at doing for the timetable for stuff like that. And I guess we can kind of talk a little bit about the timetable for the different sessions, but like maybe not exactly what they are yet.
A basic idea, yeah. Maybe we could give a slight spoiler later or something to one of them.
Perhaps. So right now, the tentative schedule that we actually have set up, because believe it or not, we actually have enough people signed up that we will more likely than not be running 4 different one-shots. So groups have been kind of split up into 4 different groups, basically, so that's kind of what we're looking at. For the first session, we are looking at trying to run it in the end of July, or close to the end of July.
Yep.
The next one will more likely than not be run towards the end of August, beginning of September. Then from there, we're going to try to have another one like mid-late October. We'll be then throwing another one in at some point during November. And then lastly as well, in December, we are going to be doing likely what will be an all-star campaign, which that one will actually have a hand roster specifically selected for that campaign.
Yes.
And that may include some of the people from the one-shots, but it also may include some other more notable personalities playing as well.
We can leave that at that.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But more or less...
You mean the people from your current one?
No.
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 Or maybe.
Maybe?
We
Might
don't-
include some of them?
Honestly,
They're not excluded.
Honestly, we don't really know fully. But
Yeah, that's very far off, and that will be done likely in the earlier part of December, so that it's released kind of throughout the holiday season.
yes.
It may not necessarily be holiday themed, though.
1 or 2 of these might not even be streamed either. They might be off the record. Maybe like a VOD of it, like I'll do a recording of the session, but not live. Just
Sure.
depending on who confirms or not, because I don't necessarily want to bombard. And we're getting too specific.
Yeah. So
You've got
more
people
or less,
who might want to be offline.
Yes. Yes. There are some people who have in the past indicated that if they wanted to do it, they weren't entirely comfortable with the idea of streaming it.
Necessarily,
we're gonna do our
but
best-
if they're into it, we'll do it. For sure.
Yeah. So, like, we want to do our best to, like, meet everybody's wishes. Is Paul going to be there? So here is... So in terms of playing in the one-shots, right now, no. 1 second, guys.
For the one-shots, consider me like the cameraman. I will be streaming them, and I'll be doing like the behind-the-scenes, making sure the sound sounds fine and stuff like that. So that will be happening, and it'll be on my channel, and I'll like upload the VODs and all that sort of shit. But I will not be a player character necessarily.
Are you going to be an extra voice for us, NPCs?
I might be an NPC. We might be doing something with that. So yes.
Sorry about that. Had a brief interruption. What did I miss here?
I was just basically saying that I will be doing the behind the scenes, like putting it live on my channel, doing the VODs, and making sure that you can hear everything, blah, blah, blah. But I won't necessarily be, like, battling alongside you. No.
Correct.
Necessarily.
Right. So, Paul is
Battling
not an
against us?
No. I promise you I will not be doing that. I can confirm that.
So he's not slated to be like a set-up player, basically.
Exactly.
So, like, when I say that we're going to have the groups of people, may it include some of our players from other campaigns? Yes, it might. But like, Paul's going to be mainly running logistics and such.
Yes.
So, you're probably not going to see him.
Okay.
So that's kind of a question with that.
Yep.
What else do you guys have?
Anyone have anything else? 'Cause I still have plenty of questions. So I've only been able to get through the first day's worth. I just finished it earlier today.
Sure.
Of your Age of Change campaign.
Yeah.
From my understanding, the second session was no combat.
Mm-hmm.
Do we, whenever we're going to do this as one-off, can we expect back-to-back combat sessions with only a few breaks, or is it going to be sort of combat, then maybe an equal amount of time exposition and combat, whatever? So
this kind of goes a little bit into, like, if you will, sometimes the DM peeks out from behind the curtain, says a few things, whereas some of the other times it's like, well, this is kind of like my process of developing stuff here. So when it comes to creating one-shot campaigns, it's actually very different from creating a standard D&D campaign, because standard D&D campaigns are more serialized. They have an arc that can go through, several sessions, and then you kind of move on to different acts within the same sessions. So in terms of D&D as a regular session, you can almost think of a regular campaign as like a television series in a way. There are characters that are introduced, there are arcs and conflicts that are set up and resolved, while there may be new and overarching instances that may be occurring as well. When it comes to designing a one-shot, think of it as almost like designing a made-for-television movie. Kind of have a limited space to work with to crunch a little bit of everything in there.
But that, one-shots are, or I'd say a made-for-TV movie or whatever, seems like it's much better because you don't have to deal with as much of the bullshit.
Right. So basically, that's the biggest thing, is like when making a one-shot campaign, it's coming up with, obviously you want to come up with a theme, like what the center balance is for like the theme. Like what's going to happen? Like what's your main plot line that you want to do in a one-shot? Because one-shots, as opposed to campaigns, are usually very tightly scripted. In terms of like, these are the things that are more likely not going to happen. There may be some like offshoots. There's not as many branching paths set out because there isn't multiple weeks for players to explore the outcomes of these things. This is a one session, like 4 to 6 hours. Like you have to kind of prepare for a lot of different things, but then you also kind of have to have foot down. Like this is something you can't do. This is something that's not going to happen. So one shot's a little bit more tightly regulated. But I can definitely say with confidence that one-shots likely won't focus as heavily on role-playing. There may be a little bit of it, but in terms of combat and puzzles, that's probably a lot more where the focus is. Roleplay, there will be a little bit, but the thing is because you don't get to expand too much on your character, when the characters come in for the campaigns, you guys are all given pretty much a preset background.
Okay.
I mean, you can have like little twists and filters with it as you want to interpret it, but in terms of like what the bond the party shares is, that is going to be predefined for every campaign.
Okay.
So like you may not, so you're not some band of adventurers that stumbled across each other or something like that. There is a pre-existing bond that your characters do share. And I see a quick question in the chat before I move on with your next one, Vel. Last question you have on classes. What do I know about Invokers? So Invokers from Player Handbook 2 they're very kind of interesting in that the way that they work is that they are more of a control-based class. So what they do is that they play a bit more ranged basis. They don't have they really don't have any melee attacks. They do damage in AoE bases and kind of control the battlefield in that respect. So that's kind of what Invokers are. Invokers also rely on powers of divinity, so for them, what makes them interesting is that for them, you are forced to actually pick a deity that your character worships, and you have to act in accordance with that deity, or things may or may not happen to you. So, yeah.
Would you recommend that as like a first-time class or whatever? Seems a little complicated.
It's not too bad.
Okay, cool.
Like, here's what I would recommend, like, in terms of people with experience, if they want to know, like, where's going to be the stuff that I should be looking for. For player handbook, for people who are definitely, like, less comfortable with the idea of D&D, Player Handbook 1 has your really basic classes. Player Handbook 2 has a few more classes that would be considered basic in many circles, and a few more that are, like, the next step up. Nothing too crazy, but they do require a little bit more thought in how they're played. For people who are a lot more comfortable with the idea of D&D, and a lot of people who are more experienced with D&D, then Player Handbook 3 is where you want to go. That's kind of how I would recommend it. And then Meowth asks, when you say 4 to 6 hours, do you have to make a whole block of 4 to 6 hours of time to play? Yeah. Pretty much. When we block out the session, that's gonna be the timetable. Now, because I know there are going to be some people that are going to be like on the East Coast and stuff like that, like, the aim for these one-shots is to start them earlier in the afternoon. So, like, we started at about 3 o'clock Pacific. For a one-shot, I would want to start even earlier than that. I'd want to start like 1 o'clock Eastern.
Yes.
Or like 1 o'clock... No, not 1 o'clock Eastern. That's 10 o'clock Pacific. Like 1 o'clock Pacific.
Yes, I agree.
So then that way it can go anywhere from like 5 to like 7. So, and the thing is that if a one-shot's going 6 hours, that's really long. I generally like to try to get mine to go between like 4 and 5 hours. But sometimes they can go a little bit longer. Yeah, 3-hour time differences can be a little bit tricky with stuff like this, but trust me, you don't know scheduling hell until you're in a Blood Bowl league and not a single one of the people in your division is even in the same continent as you. That's not fun, by the way.
That sounds great.
Yeah, let's put it this way.
That sounds great. Sorry.
I was excited when I had an opponent that was only 7 hours time difference off from me.
This is a weird time to bring this up, but our Shadowrun DM is Australian.
So that still works out wonderful for you, Paul, doesn't it?
Honestly, it doesn't matter because I said, would 3 o'clock our time be fine? He's like, that's like 4 in the morning. That's fine for me. That's just like, okay, whatever.
Damn. He's hardcore.
Well, Paul's up at that hour. His time, right?
Pretty much.
So, but yeah, that's the thing, is that overall the way that it'll work is once we get all the groups together, we're going to sit down and come up with, like, the time/day that's going to work best for everybody.
Okay.
So it's not like when I say, like, hey, this is going to be, you know, we're doing this campaign on this day at this time, and if it doesn't work for you, oh well. No, we're going to work down exactly what time and day we're going to do that when we have the group entirely assembled.
Yes. Yeah, that makes sense. Also, comment saying he thinks he knows what class and race is already.
Just depends on if the group needs support or damage. Okay. And that's perfectly fine. Like, the thing is it's good to have a few options in hand for it. Like, just having the ideas in hand is really nice, because if you know, that's great. If you don't know, that's also okay. It just will take a little bit longer to work on the stuff in the workshop, and that's okay. Like, I don't expect everybody to come in as, like, crazy prepared or, like, knowing exactly, like, this is what I want to do. There's a lot of people who don't have a lot of experience with D&D, and that's perfectly fine.
We should have that before the session, because we'll have a pre-session, right?
Right. I mean, when I say, like, people coming into the workshop.
Okay. Oh, let's see, what else did I... Oh, so I know you guys have been talking about Shadowrun lately, but the campaigns that we're going in for as one-shots are more medieval-based rather than the futuristic ones, or could it be either?
More likely than not, it will have medieval bends.
Okay.
Because we are using Dungeons and Dragons as our basis for these systems. So none of these one-shots are Shadowrun. It's not going to be like, surprise, you're the lucky group who gets to play a completely different game than everybody else that everybody signed up for. It's one-shots. It's not what we're
Okay.
gunning for with the one-shots. Everybody will be playing Dungeons & Dragons 4th edition. There may be some that may have a slight futuristic bend on them, but, like, I don't see them being anything, like, so
We now
batshit
have to
crazy.
get used to guns and cars. Nothing like that.
Let's put it this way. If there was a futuristic bend, it would act basically like, say, for instance, let's say I gave you... Let's say that I did give you a gun or something to that effect. Depending on what gun it is, it may function like a different range weapon.
Okay.
Like, for instance, a sniper rifle may act as something a little bit more akin to a longbow, whereas maybe an Uzi might act as something like a crossbow or a sling.
But
Like,
mechanically,
it
it,
would
will operate the same as
Mechanically, it will operate the
Yeah.
same, but the flavor might be just a little different.
right.
Okay. Meowth asks, out of all 3 books, should I read just book 1? I just want the basics down. Yes. Yes, book 1. If you don't have any experience with D&D at all, book 1 is a must. So, like, here's a good way to think about it. Book 1 covers everything you need to know. In terms of, like, how to play, making characters, and stuff like that. 2 and 3 primarily add more races, classes, and options to it. 1 has the mechanical stuff, which is why it's, like, the biggest book. Because it isn't just, like, races, classes, and all that stuff. It's like, this is how you play the game. That's why that book is so much bigger than the other 2. It has the most stuff in it. But yeah, if you just want the basics down, then Player Handbook 1 is going to be the book that you want.
I would recommend maybe like watching some YouTube, getting the feel for how that stuff works too.
So, and you
It's a
also...
little confusing reading it sometimes and seeing all the like different outcomes and how they can work and stuff. It makes a lot more sense if you just watch like half an hour of a group that knows what they're doing just kind of do it.
Right, and you also kind of have to be careful because some groups that, you know, may know how to do it may not even be running the same version we're running.
Yeah.
A lot of the tight run groups that are really popular on YouTube and Twitch and what have you, they don't run 4E. A lot of groups right now run either 2 or 5 right now.
Well, 5 is a new hotness.
5 is the new hotness, and it's very similar to how 2 played in certain mechanics. So, if 5's played, there's usually some homebrewing involved with it, but for the most part, hardcore circles play for 2. And then Paul is and then Meowth is asking you, Paul, any good recommendations? Well, I mean, you could start with ours.
Oh yeah, I mean, she's been there since day one though, so if you want people that literally do this for a living, I recommend JP still. Find
Oh yeah, JP McDaniel.
Yep. ITMEJP on YouTube. Just look him up. He has a whole series called Roleplay, and that is literally his job, is playing these types of games and putting the videos up.
Yep. So, like, for him, they don't really have any 4E campaigns, which is what makes it so tricky. But you get an idea
Yeah.
for how the game works in terms of its structures, maybe?
Do yourself a favor and don't do any of the Shadowrun stuff, though. Find a classic D&D one, because the dice system is so different, you're gonna get really fucking confused.
So, for them, they're probably going to want to look at either... Probably Solemn. The Solemn series is probably one of the ones.
You know, even Dark
Read the book
Heresy,
first,
honestly, like, because it's pretty similar.
Dark Heresy's a Warhammer book, though.
Yeah, like, but, like, the way it works mechanically is pretty similar.
Okay, Comet asks, one last question. If I want to be a cleric, are there any advantageous races to be besides elf or human? So, here's one of the things that I also want to impart. Like, in terms of, you know, when it says something like, play this if you want to be a member of a race that favors this, and this. That's kind of just like your basic, you know, this might work for you. So, depending on which way you want to go, if you want to go wisdom... If you want to go wisdom-based builds, dwarves aren't necessarily too bad. Elves are pretty nice. Humans have the flexibility that they get to have to go with that. If you want to, like I said, continuing on the wisdom build, devas are not too bad. From Player Handbook 2. Shifters, again, for whiz builds may not be the worst decisions there either. And in fact, you could almost do, if you wanted to do like the long tooth shifter, that could work for either cleric build actually. That could work really well for either because they get strength and wisdom, so there's a really high synergy there. Strength-based builds, you know, characters that can spec into strength, so like Dragonborn isn't a terrible idea there. Humans can, you know, put that there if they want to. Shifters have a really good focus for strength. Half-orcs and Goliaths do as well. Minotaurs also do for strength as well. And for wisdom, Githzerai are also not too bad. Same with Shardmines, as well as Wilden. There are quite a few races that you can do. Like, that's the thing, like, when it says, you know, play this race if you want to be one of this, this, or this. That's one of those ones that is kind of like, these are recommended races, not necessarily, you know, the best races for it, but if you want to go in that direction, if you want to be that kind of class, this might be a race that works well for you. And then Meow says, should I read the book or watch the videos? I personally would read the book.
I would read the book and then watch the videos, because if you watch the videos first, you will still have no idea. At least get some basis on how the, like, rolls work and what checks are and that stuff, and then everything else will come naturally.
Absolutely.
And you might even be entertained while you're learning it. Go
Who
figure.
knows?
Well, depending which... he's done some shitty campaigns, but whatever.
Who hasn't, though?
That's kind of the thing, right? Is that he has so many that, of course, statistically, some are going to be garbage.
The only campaigns that I would personally say, the only like if you're gonna watch It Maybe JP, the ones that I would recommend not watching are, I don't even know if he still has them up anymore. Let me actually take a look at his channel, because I would say Eben, that's not a good campaign to try to learn from. Like, Eben is not a good campaign to try to pull any, like, thing to try to learn from. Let's see here. So, they have Solemn, which is a pretty good one. The Dark Heresy ones is not bad. Let me actually see here. Let's go playlists and see. They have Saga the Icelanders, which is not really... I don't know what Icelanders is. I think that might be Dungeon World, maybe. Not entirely sure.
What about just his first series? The standard Dungeons
Yeah,
and
that's
Dragons.
Solemn.
That's Solemn?
Yeah, that's Solemn. That's going to be the way to go. So the ones that I would recommend that you do, don't do Eben or Vigil.
Anything else should be okay.
I was about to say, don't do Eben. If you're trying to learn, don't do Eben, don't do Vigil. The roleplay ones, as good as they are, I wouldn't, or like roleplay R&D, good as they are, not going to help you to learn here. Dark Heresy, maybe a little bit.
And from the new stuff, stay away from Mirror Shades. As far away as you can.
Mirror Shades will confuse the hell out of everybody. Saga of the Icelanders probably will too. Maybe some stuff about West Marches, I don't know, but stick with roleplay Solemn. That's going to be the best one to go with if you're trying to learn basic D&D. And then comment says, Shifter's the race you're looking for. Look at the books now. Thank you very much. No problem. And again, I openly encourage people, if they've got questions about D&D, you know, feel free to reach out. I am actually going to be putting my Twitter handle in here. Like, you can reach me at tpomps on Twitter. So, like, if you guys have questions, like, that's gonna be the way to go. So again, like, if you guys have the questions, like, let me know. I am here to answer as much as I can.
Also, Vel, I know your lovely wife signed up, so if she has any questions, she can ask as well, I guess, through you. You could be the vessel.
Yeah, sure. Okay. I will... you know what? I'll go ask if she has any questions. I already sent her the link saying that, hey, look, they're doing a Q&A session. She's like, oh, okay. So, yes, if she needed to go to this, so... whatever.
Yeah, she doesn't need to go to this one, but like when it comes to the workshops for building characters, yeah, you need to be there for those. Absolutely.
No, I will make sure. make
we're
sure.
we're doing our best to try and pair you up in a group
Thank you.
It's going to
because
happen.
it's probably going to happen.
I am not going to split you two up. Don't worry.
And yes, Meowth, you may ask questions after the stream is over.
No, it closes. The question font, the answer font closes. There's nothing after this.
Until
we
2
have to
weeks
wing it
from
ours-
now.
Yes.
No. We're not
I know.
running in 2 weeks. We're probably, like I said, we're probably going to be running last week of July, first week of August for the people who are selected for that campaign.
You will get
And-
5 minutes before we start to ask questions, and then you better know everything. I'm obviously kidding.
Yeah, well, maybe he isn't, but you'll never know.
It would be
Hello,
helpful
Homer.
if you knew most of the stuff 5 minutes before, but you don't have to necessarily.
Yeah.
Welcome to the chat, Homer. Do you have any questions on how to play D&D? It's not like you've been doing this.
I don't have any questions off the top of my head at the moment.
I think
Okay.
I think I speak for our group still that we're still learning a lot as we're
Yeah.
doing it, but we have the luxury of being able to have regularly do it and learn it.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. Everybody still learns as they go. I mean, I've been DMing now for almost a year and a half, which is a scary thought. Real scary thought. And even I'm still learning about certain mechanics to this day. Like, for instance, during one of the campaigns, I didn't realize what a certain keyword meant. Found out what it meant and went, oh, that changes so much. Because there are some powers in the game that have a keyword that I never understood. It was called reliable.
Okay.
So what reliable means, if it's attached to a power, which normally reliable is attached to encounter powers or daily powers, if you roll it and you don't hit with it, you keep the use of it.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Oh.
So it's like, oh. So almost kind of think of it like an ult in Heroes of the Storm. Like if you're channeling an ult or something and you get interrupted during it and it has, instead of the full-blown cooldown, you have like a 10-second cooldown on it instead.
Yeah.
Think of it kind of like that. Like you're not able to do like... I mean, you could technically use an action point to try and do it again the same turn, but ultimately it's like it's still available until you actually hit it, and then it has to go through its full charge cooldown. So, and that's the thing, that's all we really ask Meowth, is that everybody does their best with it, and everybody has fun with it. That's the most important part. We just want to make sure that everybody is as clear as possible as they can be for these one-shot campaigns.
I think maybe we should talk a little bit about what will be required. Like, you will need the player's handbook.
Yes.
PDF, real version, doesn't matter, but like when game day comes, have that open to your stuff, for sure.
Yeah. Have that open to your abilities and what have you, and additionally, so characters are going to be built via the Roll20 system, which we can kind of, well, I guess, should we showcase that right now on stream, real quick?
Yeah, we can do that. Give me a minute, we'll keep talking a little bit while I set that up, but yeah, we can
Sure.
do that.
Sure. So what we can do with that is, what we're going to do is we're going to showcase off the what we have on Roll20 kind of as our... what people can expect when they get into the campaign, so to speak, in terms of character.
Also, make sure you have a mic. Like, seriously, have a mic.
Yeah. Mics are going to be pretty required here. Webcams are not.
No,
but-
webcams are totally optional, and like a thing that if we have enough, we can do like face cam stuff if we have it. But if we don't, that is so not important at all.
Otherwise, we don't, though. Okay, are there races in Book 1 or So I Need Book 2? So here's the thing. In Book 1, 2, and 3, there are races and classes.
Okay, I'm just gonna do a screen region here.
Sure, and we'll have them... So what we'll do to show them first is I want you to show them the bio and info screen.
Alright.
So that way we can kind of scroll through, because I can't really control your mouse. I kind of see it on the delay on the stream.
Yeah. Let's get rid of this. Okay. Actually, you know what? Let me get rid of this, and I will blow up some of this stuff so it's bigger and easier to see.
Sure.
So, We'll go screen capture. We'll do the main play area as 1.
So I have a general question while you're setting this up.
Yes.
How much do you tolerate out of character banter versus in character? Because it seems like there's a lot of it in the current campaign, but I was just wondering if what's an acceptable level? Because
As
some
long
people
as
might
it's-
be more.
Is it obvious that it's out of character? Because if it is obvious, then we can fairly roll with it decently.
Okay.
But if it's straddling a line between like being in character and out of character, and it's tough to tell, like I may ask players to clarify if that is an out of character reaction or if that is something that your character is actually saying.
Okay.
Because there are some instances where if a character were to say that to some of my playable characters in the campaign, oh, there would be some definitely interesting reactions there. Common asks, was there a thing about webcam mics? Okay, so preferably if you don't have a mic in your webcam, you have like a dedicated mic, use that.
Yeah, if you are on a laptop and you have one built into a webcam, that should probably be fine as long as you have headphones plugged in so we don't hear ourselves 100 times. Do not do
Yes.
that. You will just be thrown out, because that is the worst.
Yeah, Echo
and if
sucks.
and if you're using like a standard open mic like that, keep your background noises down because those pick them up more than headset mics do.
Or even
Yes.
in TeamSpeak, set like a hotkey that you can push really quick, like even spacebar, anything really that is just quick and easy. And every time you talk, unmute, say something, and mute right away. That's probably fine.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's something that I don't think was described. How are we going to be doing this? Via Skype? Via TeamSpeak?
TeamSpeak.
We will be
TeamSpeak.
using TeamSpeak because I can adjust everybody's volume separately for the stream.
Okay, no, so that's what I was wondering about. So we need to have TeamSpeak ready to go and set
Yes, that'll be another thing that you need to have done. So,
up. Okay.
basic requirements for it, you're going to need to have the 3 handbooks, which we're providing. You'll need to download TeamSpeak, you'll need to get a Roll20 account, attend the workshop. Anything else I can't think of off the moment right now? Because attending the workshop is when we're going to make the characters, so...
Have a good attitude. Don't be a dick. Like,
Yeah,
that,
come in with an
obviously.
open mind. Don't
that should go
antagonize other
without
players.
saying. But,
So
like,
you mean, can I not
But,
be
yeah.
a dick as a character?
you can be a dick as a character. 100%, that's fine. If you start trying to min-max shit, though, or metagaming, that shit is bad.
Yeah, metaing is a little bit tricky, but in addition, you can, let's put it this way. Perfect example. David. Okay?
Oh, God. David's
He's a
not the
great
perfect example of anything except for the lowest common denominator.
Oh my god. Someone's throwing shots today. But here's what I mean, though. David's a great guy, really nice, out of character and what have you.
Yeah.
In character, though, Torvok's a dick.
Yeah, he's a scumbag. I hate him.
Like, Torvok's a scumbag. And so it's like, that's something that doesn't extend out to other players when he's out of character.
Right.
That's fine. You can be an asshole, but if you start being an asshole to people in real life, I'm gonna get a little pissed.
Yeah, pretty much.
You'll
Also-
pretty much,
I mean-
you'll get a warning. You'll get a hey, maybe dial that back a little bit, and if you keep it up, I'll just toss your ass out. I'm a DM. I can throw poison darts from any place there can be. And they will. I will see to it that they kill you.
Yeah, I mean,
They're on a
you
1D
be a dick,
100.
but ultimately you generally are trying to work together with people
Yes.
to play a game.
Is
so.
David the elf racist or Torvok the elf racist? David plays Torvok, the Eladrin, who is racist.
I'm not sure if it's his character that hates elves or if it's actually him that hates
Let's
elves.
just roll with his character for the sake of this
Okay.
discussion.
Yeah, sure.
So, alright, so we have the overlay showed up here on Roll20. So this is kind of a really good idea for what people can expect when they get into the game. On the left-hand side is an in-play area and a map. This is where you would move around tokens and stuff. Now, Paul can't move around any of these people, but I can. So generally, movement in D&D is on a grid basis. Each square is considered 1 for speed. So if a set character has speed 7, they can move up to 7 squares. If they have speed 5, only 5, so on and so forth. That's kind of like what the combat looks like. Or like, not necessarily the combat, but this is what your in-game play area will look like. It's basically grid-based. So just keeping that in mind, that's kind of what you are in for in that respect. On the right-hand side of the screen, you see a dice log. The dice log is basically like our in-chat area, in-game where rolls will be done, stuff like that. You can actually, fun little thing there is there's a little drop-down menu on the bottom, so you can talk in character or out of character. So that's something that also happens as well if we're having issues. So as you can see, for instance, Paul just typed, in one thing, that's one of his that's like out of character because that's his main account that he plays Roll20 on. But with the drop-down menu, he can also switch down to his character Bairn and say something as if he were in Bairn in chat. So that's something you can also do as well.
Have a mic though, like for real. Have a mic.
Please have a mic.
So, would you recommend if we do maybe any out of character comments in text chat?
I would honestly
Oh!
recommend
Better?
it in text chat to each other in TeamSpeak, so it's not showing up and clogging anything.
Okay.
Alright. Usually use the mobile and headphones for discussing with people online, so what if there isn't a TeamSpeak application for it?
There is, because I have it on my phone, and I use it at work, and it works flawlessly.
There's your answer. So you're gonna have to download the app. Like, it's basically, think of that as like a little piece of the syllabus. You need to get it. I don't care how you get it, but you're gonna need to get it.
Mm-hmm. If for some reason there is some contention and everybody says we want to use Skype, maybe we can visit that if that comes to that. Otherwise, I would prefer to use TeamSpeak for a multitude of behind-the-scenes volume editing reasons.
Yeah.
Also, Skype sucks. It just lags everything unnecessarily.
That it does. I don't like it. So, but yeah, basically, make it work. We'll make it work.
Okay.
Is that it for
But as you-
Roll20?
No,
Well,
actually,
so
it's
I
not.
have other questions about the Roll20 that I was a bit confused about. Maybe the handbook will go into greater detail.
Sure.
But this is specific for combat.
Combat, okay.
Flanking.
Ah,
So
yes.
How is flanking determined besides two people having to be on either side? But I would presume both players can't be flanking at the same time. The enemy has to face one direction.
Let's go ahead and use this as a really good opportunity to talk about flanking for combat, because this is one of the ones that is a little on the trickier side. And we even have 3 tokens here, so it's perfect. Alright. Let's operate on the space. This is a 3x3 grid right here, so we're going to center it on this guy here. Everything out here is where we're going to be talking about, so 3x3 square. Okay. Right now, the bad guy is being flanked. So, because player character has a straight line through to somebody else that would be considered flanking. This would not be considered flanking, because nobody has the backline sight. So in other words, there isn't anybody that goes through it, therefore no flanking. Now, when
Okay.
it comes to being considered like if you are flanking them, what flanking does, it doesn't necessarily mean back attack. Flanking
Okay.
just means that you have the upper hand on them because they kind of can't turn around to deal with either of you effectively. So what happens is you can almost think of it as, in some instances, when players make checks, other players can check to assist them. If they succeed on the assist, they get like additional bonuses to the check or what have you. You can think of somebody flanking somebody as being automatically able to assist on attack.
Okay, I get you.
So like for instance, if there's a check that I'm having players do and they only want one specific player to roll it, they can then roll a side check, which then allows them to roll to see if they can assist the player. If they succeed, they impart like a +2 bonus to the player that they assisted's check. So think of flanking as basically being able to provide auto assist on attack. It doesn't necessarily have to do with back or forward facing, though.
Okay, I was assuming that there was a directionality in there,
No.
so that helps.
Yeah, there's no directionality. There basically just needs to be straight line between the people. So, like, for instance, this is flanking. This is not flanking. However, this is flanking.
Okay, now this is a bit weird because, I'm watching the stream, but
Sure, I understand.
I'm
But
listening on TeamSpeak, so
Yeah,
I'm
but
seeing it.
But you can kind of get the
Yeah.
idea for it.
Yeah, I get the idea.
So that's kind of how flanking works in D&D. It gets a little bit trickier with ranged classes.
Yeah.
Because in order to flank with range, like, you actually have to have a specific feat to pull it off. So, like, for instance, let's say that our intrepid adventurer is here. So here's the thing, as a ranged character, this is technically not considered flanking unless they have the feat called Distant Advantage. Distant Advantage allows them to gain flanking if there is an ally that meets the line. In this case, there is. So it's a little bit tricky in that respect, but it's a little bit more advanced. Let's see here. So, but that's kind of your basic overlay for the field in Roll20. However, I want to show you guys a little bit more of what you can expect in terms of the character sheets. So, Paul, if you could open up Baron's character sheet and go to Bio and Info first to show what our players can look at. Yeah, just open up Baron. So, when each player is created, they have their own little section within Roll20 that allows characters to access their specific character. What the bio and info has is it has the information about your character that is basically the name, the character's speed, how much HP they get per level, what languages the characters know, which is determined during character creation, any special types of vision that may apply to them, which vision is kind of an interesting little mechanic that is, it's basically there's 3 types of visions. There's normal, low light, and dark vision. Basically determines what kind of lights they're able to see in and what kind of penalties they get to seeing in other lights.
Okay.
Background elements will probably not be integrated into this campaign. So you don't really have to worry about that. Class features are things... excuse me. So class features are things that your class specifically has accessible to it. So for instance, Paul's Paladin has the abilities of Channel Divinity, Divine Challenge, and Lay on Hands. Each of those abilities are kind of detailed in his ability queue, which we'll show off in a minute. Characters also have their own racial features, so for instance, dwarves have little special tricks that only dwarves can do. They have plus saving throws against poison. They can use Second Wind as a minor action instead of a standard. They get special proficiencies in other weapons. Their speed's not affected by armor penalties or heavy loads in terms of moving them. Standing your ground allows you to avoid falling prone, and forced movement is reduced by 1 square. So that's just stuff that is like specific to each race. Each race has their own little kick. So then moving on from that, we also have the feats. Feats are basically, think of them as your talents. These are things that kind of augment abilities or give you small, like, new tools. So, kind of like that. So, for instance, Paul has the feats Improved Initiative and Armor of Bahamut. Improved Initiative gives him a higher bonus to initiative checks, whereas Armor of Bahamut gives him actually like another ability to work with. So if you want to think of it this way, Vel, because I know you're familiar with Heroes of the Storm, you know how characters have a Q, W, E, and R?
Mm-hmm.
Feats can augment some of those abilities, or they can give you the stuff that gives you the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
So think of it like that.
Okay.
And then lastly, the inventory basically describes what the character is carrying. So that includes weaponry, armor, any other equipment, money, and stuff like that.
I gotta update the gold, by the way.
Oh yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody
Okay,
has to.
so does it matter, because I haven't gotten into it, about, I guess, encumbered?
Okay.
Do we actually have to keep track of, after we get new loot, weights?
Normally, yes. For a one-shot campaign, wouldn't worry about it too much unless it plays into something like very specifically. Like, for instance, let me talk about the load system and how that actually works, because
Okay.
it's usually a mechanic that's a little less utilized, but it might be for certain things. So the way that load mechanics work is that your character can carry 10 times its normal strength attribute, which strength is one of your main statistics for your character. Your character can carry 10 times that without having any issues. If it carries more than that, it is considered to be encumbered, which then basically means that you move at a slower speed and what have you. And in some instances, you actually may take it may take more for you to do certain. Whereas, I'm so sorry. It's been I didn't get sleep for shit last night. So whereas, if you take a look at something like, that's 20 times the load, and it's kind of what's considered, what you can carry, and it will slow you down. However, 40 times your strength stat is what's called your max drag, which is what you can pull with very great effort.
Okay, so that's what you could do at the end of a thing. That's the maximum that you could expect to carry in loot.
No, you would never be able to carry 40 times it. Like,
Okay.
40 is like the maximum that if it's standing on the ground that you can pull.
Oh, I see.
20
see.
times is like the max that you'd be able to carry, and even then you're going to struggle doing it. Like 10 times is what you can reasonably carry without issue. Up to 20 times is like struggle. And then 40 is going to be like what you can pull from the ground but not lift.
Okay. So 40 times your strength is if you need to try to knock over a statue.
That actually would not apply in this case.
Oh, okay.
Knocking over a statue would be considered a strength check, not what would be like a load. Like if you want to move the statue, then how much the statue weighs, that's what it would apply to.
Yeah, like if you wanted to like push a statue off of a whatever.
Yes, not if
A
you wanted to
pedestal.
break it. There is a difference in check stats there, actually.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's kind of what you're looking at for that. All of a sudden, my mouse just locked up for a second, so I can't move anything.
Nice.
Okay, my antivirus was installing a brief little update, and it's like, hey, installed an update for you. Great, thanks, appreciate it.
Alright, and so I didn't spend a lot of time watching you guys do the initial setup, and obviously we'll probably do that in our workshop, but
Correct.
do we just have to do a whole bunch of dice rolls for our attributes?
Thank you for asking. So there's actually a ton of different ways that characters can generate their statistics, actually. There are actually 3 typical ways to generate statistics. There's the roll, there's the custom, and then there's the standard array.
Okay.
We will be using standard array,
Okay.
which means these are the numbers that your characters will use, but it is up to you how you want to allocate them.
Oh, okay. Because the one time that I've really played in detail, we just rolled like 6 die, and that was basically it. You had to assign 1 die to every attribute.
That sounds terrible.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could sort the die attribute later. You didn't have to pre-say. So I ended up with like 1 charisma or some shit like that. But whatever.
Traditionally, the way that dice rolling would work for statistics, if it's done that way, is you would roll 4d6. You would roll 4 6-sided dice.
Mhm.
And the one that is the smallest number is the one that you would be removing from the numbers. So say, for instance, if you rolled if you rolled 4d6 and you rolled a 6, a 3, a 4, and a 1, okay?
Huh.
You would toss out the 1, and the other 3 dice would make up the first number for one statistic.
Okay.
You would then repeat that a few more times, and then that would be your 6 stats. So, for instance, Paul just rolled in here. What the? You did not just do that.
I did. Why doesn't that happen in the campaign?
God damn it! Wasting good rolls, man. Wasting
So-
good
This is
rolls.
all Ben's fault, man. This was
bad
supposed to be a
example.
campaign roll.
Bad example there. But traditionally, actually, the roll would be 4d6 instead of 3d6, but still pretty impressive, Paul.
But okay, just assuming there was another 6 in there, so he managed to get 4
He managed
sixes.
to get the 18.
He managed to get. He would basically drop. So let's just
One
say he
6.
rolled 2 6s and 2 5s. You'd drop
He
a
would roll a
5
5.
and
And then
Okay.
his skill would be 17. So, for
Okay.
instance, 46, again, another ridiculous roll here. He would get rid of the 4 in this instance and keep the 3 5s.
okay. But we're not going to do that for the one-offs. For the one-offs, it's going to
Heck no.
be class plus race presets, or
So here's how it's going to work. So, for instance, actually, here's a really good example of how the roll system could work in your favor. My roll that I just did here was a 5, a 6, a 5, and a 2. The 2 would be gone. So the way that the standard array works is there are specific numbers that are generated, and those numbers are... Gee, I don't know why I'm getting so tired all of a sudden. I blame my bird.
you can blame me. You
They
know.
have bird disease.
Bird flu.
Yeah, bird flu.
Birdemic.
Birdemic. Birds looking at me like, hey, stop that.
Why are you
So,
polluting so much?
why am I polluting so much? Look, I don't walk around shitting where I walk. Bird. So the numbers that are used are 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 16. Higher obviously being better. Yeah, I am a little tired, honestly. Yesterday was kind of a bit of a beater, but that's the story for another time. But basically you use that standard array, you allocate those to the statistics that you want to, and then afterwards you apply the racial bonuses that your character would confer to those specific stats.
Okay.
So you would allocate your 16, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, and then say you had +2 to these specific statistics, then you would apply the +2 to those. So in cases it's very much very possible at level 1 to have a character with a stat line of 18.
Okay. Okay, that's not that bad. So
Yeah.
is there a maximum for each stat?
Okay. Yes and no.
Excellent.
So what I mean by this is that you have the max value that's assigned to you, and that's kind of where you get to go with it. And like basically, let's put it this way: the best stat you could ever get on a character at level 1, and it is entirely possible, but it has to be done a very specific way. And standard array prevents us from doing that, and I don't have a problem with it myself. Is if you have a level 1 character that you have an 18 for, that you managed to roll, by the way. So say you were doing your standard array, or you were doing the other improvement method, which is really weird and complex, and I don't really feel like explaining it today.
Okay.
Basically, the way that it works is you start off with 6 scores, which is 5 10s and an 8, and you have a budget. Oh, Lord, God, I need some coffee and not even drink it. You start off with 5 10s and an 8, and you have 22 points to spend on improving each of those scores, with each score going up there, costing a specific value to get it up to there.
Oh, okay, I see. It's one of those that.
Way more complex.
Yeah. Okay.
So, but basically it would, so for instance, you can start off with a character that has the 10. So here's how you would basically get the ways. if you did the customizing scores and you wanted to customize your character up to an 18 to start, you would basically make it so that you would only have 6 points to spend on your other 5 stats.
Mm-hmm.
Extraordinarily strong in one statistic and extraordinarily mediocre everywhere else. And then at that point, you would have to have a statistic that would basically give a +2 to it. Then you could have a 20 at level 1. That's as far as you could go.
Strength build rogue, here we go.
Oh, Lord.
I was thinking a Dex build Ranger, but okay. Anyway,
So yeah, traditionally, basically with our character method, the best way you can get it, 18.
well, no, so that's not what I was meaning. I was meaning, let's say you had an 18, and you were to level up.
Yes.
You increase your base stat line, and is there a certain point where it can't go any higher?
No, here's the thing. When you level up, you do not improve your statistics every time.
Okay.
So, here's how leveling up affects stats. In the game, each role has a specific set piece, which is basically... Best way I can say it, I'm going to type this in the chat, and I'm probably going to confuse a lot of people in the process.
It's probably like 1 point for every 5 levels divided by your total amount or some nonsense.
So what I typed in the chat is ADB plus C plus D plus E.
Okay.
A, in this instance, is how many dice you're rolling. Lowercase d never changes. It basically indicates how many sides the dice is going to have. It basically says, like, this is the dice.
Yeah.
B indicates the number of sides that are on the dice. So
Right.
if the roll was to be 2 6-sided die, the first one would be 2d6.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense.
If the roll was singular 20-sided dice, 1d20. So on and so forth. C is the character's proficiency in using the weapon.
Okay.
Technically, C, D, and E can be switched around in any order, but the way I want to describe it is this. C is the proficiency of the weapon. D is the character's stat that goes into the attack. So, depending on what the attack is, will depend on what stat gets plugged in there.
So melee swing is strength, probably.
Melee swings are strength, ranged spells, like, it depends on what the attack calls for. So if the attack calls for strength versus something, then the D in this case would be strength.
Okay.
But if the attack uses constitution as its base, then it would plug in the con value there.
Okay.
So D in this case is the applicable ability score. E is what is considered the half-level mod. In this case, the half-level mod goes up by 1 for every 2 levels your character has.
You mean it's actually just half your level?
It's just half your level in
What
that
the
instance,
fuck
yes.
are with these rolls, dude?
I have no idea.
Wasteful.
That one's hilarious.
Wasteful.
It's a 6 and a 1.
Yeah, it's a
So-
crit in both ways.
So basically, what
Like
that,
you drop your sword
what-
into your hand.
I interpret that roll as if he's got a sword, he skewered through his arm into the other person's chest.
Because here's another trick though. That's a damage roll that Paul just rolled.
Yeah, yeah. That's not a hit.
You can
Or-
crit fail on damage rolls, and it isn't going to do anything to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the other one.
It's if you crit fail on an attack roll that I get to screw with you.
Which will happen a lot in these one-offs. I'm so
Also
excited.
on checks, right?
On checks. Oh, on checks, it's
Checks
very
are so
fun.
much fun. Yeah, I check to jump over the counter.
1, you face plant into it.
You faceplant into the most expensive bottle of alcohol on the opposite side.
Yes. But basically the attack, so the roll basically sums up the same way. It just, depending on what the roll is, it just depends on how many little variable pieces there are. You guys won't need to write this down because when I code your character, pretty much it'll all be handled except for certain things, which I will tell you how to do those when it comes for that time.
Well, I could
Oh,
show
so-
it off.
Or you could show it off. So
So,
for instance,
I'm
let's
gonna
do...
attack Tia with Paladin's Judgment.
Okay, so go ahead and roll that for me,
Actually,
please.
I'll do one that can actually be seen here. Let's do a Piercing Smite.
Okay.
Okay, so the things at the bottom.
Fuck me, man. It's ridiculous.
You are wasting everything today.
I quit.
You quit.
Just save these. Put these in a bag. You can
You
reuse
quit.
them.
So, in this instance, what you can see is in Baron's roll here. It says, so this is the ADB plus C plus D plus E in this case. The A is 1, the B is 20, the C is 3, which is his mod for his his mod for his stat, so strength in this case.
Okay.
His D is the proficiency, and the E is half level.
Oh, great, because he's now a level 2 at this point.
He is a level 3.
Oh, okay. I see. He's a level 2 at where I left him, so you just spoiled it.
Damn it!
Thank you.
Keep up next time.
Actually, that
I'm sorry.
reminds me, the next part is going up tonight or tomorrow morning.
Oh.
From 2 weeks ago. Anyway.
So, but the thing is that also very important to remember, in this game, half level, and anything if it says it's halved, is rounded down.
Yeah, I assumed as much.
So if
That's
something
good to know.
says, so if you have an attack that deals 17 damage, but the opponent has a resist half damage, they take 8 instead. So that's kind of what we're looking at here with this instance. So that's
More
kind of what
importantly,
rules
though,
look like.
it's a button click for you guys.
Yes,
Also, that's what I was wondering. Are all of them going to be hard-coded minus the rare checks that we have to do?
correct. So here are going to be the things that are basically going to be coded. And Paul, you can pull up your character page to show them this, how their interface is going to look. So the way that it works is I already showed you guys the bio page, which is going to be the basic information about your character as a whole. The page that Paul is going to pull up is the character page as a whole that has attributes and abilities on the side of it. Now, it's a little bit tough to see, but on the left-hand side, what you'll see is your character's total hit points, your healing surges, and your basic stats. Now, the reason that they're coded like they are is in order for the codes to work, I need the smaller number before the bigger number. So the number that will be keyed in on the rolls is the one on the left. The one on the right is like your actual statistical value for those numbers.
Oh, okay, I see. So the ones on the right are the ones that get checked against.
No.
No. Okay.
So here's what I mean by this. When you have a dice roll that you have to do,
Uh-huh.
I don't pull the actual stat value, I pull the stat mod.
Oh, okay.
The mod is what's on the left. The actual statistic is on the right.
Otherwise, it would roll a plus 16 instead of a 3, right?
Correct.
And that would be
Right.
overpowered as shit, and I would love it. So we can't
You
have
would
too much
not-
fun.
Let me see here. The earliest that Paul would be able to roll a plus 16 on any of his attacks, if he keeps with his current weapons and what have you, and proficiencies, assuming he doesn't have any class mod upgrades, it would be... Here he is, 5, so 11, so level 22, roughly.
Yeah, when we start fighting dragons, like, legit. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
so no, I meant the stuff in the max optional column. That's what gets checked again. So if something is roll something to check your dexterity.
No,
Or something against your dexterity? No?
you
Okay.
are not going to be checking against those. You are going to be checking against the defenses on the next set down.
Oh, okay, so I just don't see it.
So the way that it works is, like, for instance, I make the attack versus a specific defense. If the roll ties or beats it, then it's considered a hit. Every character has each set of defenses. For armor, fortitude, reflexes, and will.
Most of what we've encountered so far, if you've been watching our campaign, has been just AC,
AC.
checks. Like, basically, if they can stab through our armor and get to us.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's kind of what we're looking at right there with those values. Then the other stuff, situationals, are just kind of there if I need them. Proficiencies dictate the proficiency and skill with which you use your weapon. If you have proficiency in it, you get a specific bonus to your roll. So Paul has proficiency with hammers, so his weapon that he gets a +2 to his roll. And then the half level mod is basically E in the roll. That kind of is what creates those sort of things like that. which are just, they're all kind of crazy, and I know it looks complex, but if you open up one of the abilities that actually has an attack in them on the right-hand side, you'll see how it all interfaces together, and it may be a bit more on the complex side, but all you guys have to worry about when it comes time for making attacks and what have you is clicking that little button on the left-hand side of the ability itself.
Okay. And guys, in the chat, I'm seeing it saying it's too difficult or it's too much. This is just really behind the scenes. Is once you get it set up, you shouldn't see much.
Yeah,
of
we
it,
are
I think.
showing you way more than you really actually have to worry about.
You don't
Yes,
actually have to
I'm-
worry about any of this because Tony codes this himself.
Okay,
The
I
only
was assuming
things-
we had to code these
Oh,
on
No.
the
I'm
setup
not
day.
gonna put you through that. No,
Doesn't seem
that's
that hard.
mean. Setting it all up is very time consuming, but that's mean to do to you guys to make you remember all that crap. No. What you will have to remember is basically the easiest stuff of the bunch. You'll have to remember how to do skill checks, which you'll have a skill table that goes up with it. And all that it'll say is, like, if I ask you to do a check of that, you're rolling a 1d20 and adding that number to it.
Okay.
That's it. And then for, I may even hard code their initiative rolls just to make it real easy.
No, I
rolls-
think they should be forced to do at least that.
Okay.
I think. That's the thing you gotta do, man. Roll for initiative. This is what you gotta do. That's the one thing. That's the one thing you want to feel like you have complete control over. Is how fucked you are.
Yeah, so for rolling initiative, it's a really simple roll, which I'll leave you with that, and then I have to run to the restroom real quick, so I'll be back in a moment. The initiative roll is 1d20 plus your character's dexterity mod, plus half level, and then any augmentations the character has. So, like, if you have something that allows you to re-roll initiatives, that can be triggered there. If you have improved initiative, which increases your initiative roll, stuff like that gets applied there. Real simple stuff in this instance. Way easier to remember. So, I'll let you chew on that just for a couple minutes while I run to the restroom. I have capable hands here that can answer some questions too, but I won't be long, so I'll be back momentarily.
I'm gonna go get more to drink while there's a slight lull.
Cool. Yeah, if there's actual specific questions, go ahead and start typing them. Like, we'll get to them. Trying to remember all this stuff from the PDF. Don't try to
No.
remember. This isn't a test. Like, don't cram. Don't do any of that stuff. Just get a basic idea of what the dice do, and you'll be fine to start off, honestly. Also, hey Homer, how's it going?
It's going okay.
I figured that the police sirens would be coming from you living in the big city and all.
Stuff happens. It's usually fire trucks, because there's a
Oh.
firehouse down the street.
Ah.
User joined your channel.
Hey, David.
Oh, shit.
Did I ruin the party?
Fucking
Yeah, everything's ruined.
Korvac.
It's doing good till you showed up.
Oh. Oh well.
It's not a test. And it's really not hard to... Like, it's hard at
Yeah.
first, but once you do it, like, once, it's kind of becomes second nature.
Yeah, and
Like, literally, a lot of it is just remembering where stuff is for you to look up. It's not like you actually have to remember most of it.
and I ask Tony freaking 50 questions a day on it every time we play.
You wouldn't know, though, because when we play, you don't seem to ask him a whole lot. You just do
Well,
your
it's-
thing and
when
become an
I-
asshole.
When I ask the questions, it's usually like at the end of the day, like,
Yeah.
when I leveled up, can I get this or this or this or that? Can I be a super beast?
You can do everything. You can become the one.
I could even fly.
I'm almost wondering if it would be beneficial for the workshop or whatever to just do a basic, quick combat, like, tutorial thing. For the, like, people who are really, really new. Just like a 10-minute little, like, attack this dog or something.
You mean like the time when I almost got killed by rats?
Yes, exactly.
Fucking rats.
But not that long. Like, not as long as that was.
Yeah, just like a 1v1.
That's all
actually
up
had-
to his discretion, though, obviously.
Yeah.
I actually got a really cool ability. It's an encounter power thing, where I can pretty much, if someone misses, I can fuck them up.
That would have been good for those wolves that were dumb as shit and missed everything.
I know, and that's why I got it. It's so freaking amazing.
Also, I just want to say, like, don't be intimidated by the PDF. The amount of stuff that's in there that you actually need to know for a game is not that much. It's a very
Yeah.
small amount of that book.
That's actually really true, because, I mean, there's, I think, probably 5 different classes and 5 of each things, or however many, and you only need to worry about what you choose.
In fact,
And
like
even of that, if you're a low-level character, most of that you're not going to even worry about.
like
Yeah.
if you know what your character race and class wants to be, I can give you the numbers of the pages you have to focus on, and it'll be like 5. The rest of this stuff you don't need to know, honestly. Like everything to do with rituals, you don't have to know. You should probably take a look at the combat stuff, just a basic overview of it. You don't have to, like, know all of it. Don't worry about feats, really.
No.
Don't worry about
Um.
equipment.
Okay, I'm back.
Well, you should learn about some of the feats, I think.
Just the ones that are in, like, your character thing, not the Paragon feats or the Epic feats or any of that stuff.
Yeah, just learn what your character knows.
Yeah, and that'll be in your class area anyway.
Alright, so will we know who is going to be in our group before the workshop session?
Yes, 100%.
That way we can maybe start discussing, oh, maybe, I really want to play a support class, or I really want to play a meat class, or whatever. That way everybody else can plan accordingly, so we don't end up with a party of 5 clerics and a wizard.
Yeah.
We probably should have done that.
We kind of did, but it still didn't work out.
It's all melee.
Aw, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think except for you, Homer, like everyone is melee.
Yes, and I was gonna be melee till I realized everyone else was melee.
Yeah, I kind of regret doing my character choice a little bit.
It's weird because you're a ranger. You could have been
Yeah.
the best.
Range.
You could have been the best shooter dude ever.
Rangers are still good with melee weapons.
And drinking, apparently.
No, that's just my character.
Ah, fair enough.
That's the race.
Now, if a character had a bow and arrow and was drunk, I might have a little too much fun with that at the player's expense for a couple sessions.
Yeah.
Oh, you're a jerk.
Crit fail, you shoot the arrow behind you before you've managed to even put it in your bow.
Crit fail, you let go of the wrong end of the bow.
Stop tempting me.
Stop tempting you.
Wait, do we have any? Wait, yeah. Homer, you're a.
I have
archer.
a bow and arrow, but none of my skills need it. But I just have it to have it. Because I can do, if I have a distant advantage on something, then I can get extra sneak attack damage. But it doesn't. I don't think it's ever going to be worth it. But I just like the option.
Initiate. Go for the eye, not yours, theirs.
And that would be a called shot. That's another fun little mechanic. It's not necessarily something that comes up a whole lot in our campaign. But if you want to say, I'm going to go for him and I'm going to go for this part, that's what's considered a called shot. There is a penalty to hit on it. If you do hit, though, you do extra damage.
Ooh.
Nice.
So I can take my sickle and shove it up his ass.
Look, I'm just trying not to blind myself over here, and I'm not calling shit out.
I think I'm glad I've already gone through that part, but it would have been much. I know the 1d100 has a whole options on wherever they roll, but it should have been so much better if it made him hoarse, and so he can use no more shouts for the rest of the encounter.
Honestly, I think Tony's taking it easy on us.
Yeah, I think
So-
he is.
So to be fair, in terms of the shouts, that's the only one he had.
Oh, really? I thought he has another one.
He
Like
has a
healing
dragon
words.
breath.
Yeah, I have that lightning breath.
He doesn't have another shout though. But no, I can't say for sure whether or not I've been easier or not. I have to find ways to be creative that are fair.
Well,
Yeah,
I think you've
but-
been mostly fair.
Well,
I mean,
from what I've seen in my little
that last
part, he's been
encounter
easy.
was the dice being easy on us.
I was about to say, yeah, your encounter in the last campaign, you guys got off very, very lucky by
Yep.
the wolves not knowing shit.
The wolves basically biting their own mouth somehow.
Oh, that was the best.
That
thing
was
ever.
They presented their necks to us.
Yeah, they like rolled over at your feet.
And then you stabbed them. How dare you?
That's pretty much exactly what happened.
Actually, except they were rolling down at the feet of the NPC, and he stabbed them.
Yeah, which
That
was
happened
real
a lot.
fun because it's like, oh my gosh, this is just easy hits, and it's not like he wasn't doing any damage to him, you know?
Yeah.
So
It was
wait,
actually-
wait. I'm just remembering the character that the dungeon master controlled had good luck against the other characters that the dungeon master controlled.
Yep.
It was not rigged, and don't you even say it.
I'm just pointing out a fact.
Pointing out that secretly the dungeon masters have a whole different rigged dice set on the.
I did
Machine.
not say that.
Yeah,
Pretty
you know what I
sure
rigged?
everyone
Dice
would be dead.
A lot more 20s than ones.
I said nothing of the fact.
No, but you insinuated or implied it.
Okay, so you mentioned this briefly, I think, in the one campaign, but it's better to clarify here.
Sure.
If in combat the enemy to roll a critical hit or critical fail, do they
Okay.
follow the same rules as a player? Because it seemed like a critical
No.
hit was just max damage.
So this is actually a really good opportunity for me to kind of explain my reasoning on this stuff, because the crit hit system, in my opinion, in 4E is shit. It's boring. I don't like it. The normal critical hit system in 4E is if you roll a 20, you will deal max damage to the target. I don't like that. There's nothing exciting about a big hit like that. I want my players to do hits that have lasting impacts on enemies. If my players are able to screw up an enemy, by all means, they should get the right to actually basically fuck them up. I want that to happen. So we used a different crit hit system before, but there was a large discussion about its viability at higher levels. So the table actually got taken down about a week before our first session. So I ended up coming up with a new one that I found that was used primarily in 2nd edition, but works really well for our campaign. And my friend had worked to create a critical fail table to go with it. Because if players are going to have these ridiculously awesome successes, there's got to be something to counter that.
Right.
Which is why if there's a fail, it hurts a lot. Or it can hurt a lot. We haven't seen anything too vicious yet, but I've seen some nasty stuff happen on that crit hit table. For example, in a campaign that I played a little bit of, we had a player get crit hit by our opponent, and because the character was hand-created for the encounter, the way that we generally do it is if we create the character ourselves, it's not pulled out of a monster manual, then they're subject to the same crit hit table as players are. So he crit hits, and then proceeds to roll a 97 on the crit hit table, which was a dramatic and lasting effect. Our player got clubbed in the head so hard it knocked him out for the rest of the encounter, instantly putting him unconscious, and reducing his intelligence stat point by 1 permanently.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. Needless to say, the crit hit table can do crazy stuff. In another campaign, I had a crit fail happen on a player, and he had a mount that he used in combat, and his character went to swing at somebody, and it missed, so what happened was it got stuck sort of when it went to swing, and as a result, like ripped one of its claws out. Like nothing major, but it was still enough that it left an impact. So crit hits can be interesting in that they can do all sorts of different things. Then there's also the crit fails, which can also really hurt players as well. But the crit hit system in D&D is max damage. I think that's stupid. So we go for something that for the players allows them to do dramatic and cool things when they screw players up. But the monsters don't get nearly that kind of luxury, so if the monster is not a specially created or coded character for the campaign, then they are subject to the standard D&D thing, because they shouldn't get to do anything too cool, but a big hit from a monster is enough to hurt.
Okay.
So that's kind of why we went with a different crit hit table, which will be provided to players before we get started, so they can see like what's going on with that, what that means, and what have you. But more or less, the only thing that you'll just need to know is if that happens, it just needs to be, a 1d100, and then from there we just kind of go from there. But it's just a different crit hit system from the books, because the book's crit hit system sucks.
Are there any other house rules that we should be aware of?
Don't make fun of the ducks.
They make fun of themselves.
Hey, at least we beat the Flames in the postseason.
The Flames have always been a joke, though. It's the
Okay.
It's the punchline of the NHL next to the Oilers.
No, dude,
Yeah.
the Flames were actually good this year. The Oilers were shit like they always are.
Yeah, the Oilers are.
The
they're
Flames
something
were
else.
actually good this year, and nobody expected them to be.
Yeah, especially not us here in Calgary.
So you'll just have to see if it's flash in the pan. When it comes really to house rules and what have you, note that there can be some flexibility with stuff, but I'm not gonna throw out all sorts of like crazy shit that people are gonna be like, wait, what the heck is that supposed to mean? So like, I'm not gonna throw in some random last minute screwball rule to fuck with you guys.
Unless it's me against a rat.
Look, man, I'm just saying, they were very interested in you, and rats tend to swarm their enemies.
They just wanted to give you a hug with their face.
Vel, do you have any idea of what you might be looking towards for a character?
Oh no.
Okay.
No, I'm fine with it, with whatever, really. So, I'm just curious. But one of those that I'm very flexible. I'll play whatever, or I can think of personalities that I'll want to apply to any specific character.
Sure. And like I said, the important thing to note is that while I'm not going to dictate how the player plays their character, I will dictate the player's background and bond.
Okay, so that's something that maybe I'm just overthinking it, because we have a very, I guess, narrowly defined scenario. Are there going to be specific restrictions or I mean, you're going to define backstories and whatnot. Are there any specific restrictions on selection of characters or classes that you can't work in, or is it pretty open, do you think?
Pretty open within the 3-player handbooks.
Okay.
However, for some of them, there may be like a weird little twist to it where I may say something like, okay, your characters may not use this power source.
Okay.
Or they may, but there may be some real repercussions if they're not careful with it.
Or anything like these particular... I haven't looked at the 4-book yet, I think. But these particular gods have lost power in this day and age, so if you choose them as your deity, or they are your deity, then expect weaker than normal results. Things
Not
like
even
that.
so much that. I mean, that's something that I could do, but I don't know how well it would work, particularly within a setting. But what an idea here, like for instance, in one of our older campaigns, was that the basis behind it was that the gods were dead. So no character was allowed to take any class that had power sources from the divine.
Oh, okay, because if we look at that sheet that was posted earlier, the quick reference, that had a divine category.
Correct. So, like, for instance, is the different categories. So, like, for instance, for Divine, that basically said that in our campaigns there were no clerics, rune priests, paladins, avengers, or invokers allowed.
But no Iron Man.
No.
Because Avengers and yeah.
God damn it.
User was moved out of your channel.
For those who don't know, Hebrew was just moved away from us.
I somehow got disconnected. How could that have happened?
Somehow.
I think your server's being weird, dude.
I don't know, man.
Still trying to get the basics. Feels like big meat to chew.
It really is, but the thing is that it's like once you jump in and do what you need to do with it, it's a lot less intimidating. Like, honestly, like, here's the thing. I want people to understand this. What you guys are seeing today is a lot of the behind-the-scenes stuff that goes into making things work. You don't have to worry about nearly that much stuff.
Frankly, I look at this and I'm like, have you guys ever played a game like Fallout? Because it's basically
Yeah.
a similar setup.
Any RPG ever, really.
Yeah.
Because they're all based in D&D, somehow.
Or the Pathfinder system.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, but the general idea is, you get traits, and then at certain points you get certain special enhancements to those traits, and you can use these skills. The main thing that's interesting, or weird, I guess, is the once per encounter, once per day. How do you define a day, especially in a single campaign?
I was wanting to talk to you about that, Tony.
Yes!
Is there a way it can be worked around where it was like everything gets dropped down a level? So like a standard would become a minor and a daily would become an encounter or something like that?
It would have to be tricky, but I couldn't break it like that because then characters could feasibly stand still and attack 3 times in a turn. I don't want that.
But that sounds fun!
Sounds fun, but it's also ridiculously game-breaking, and in order to accommodate something like that, I'd have to step the enemies way the hell up.
I think we should show how easy it is to get started here. Let's workshop making the beginnings of making a character right now.
Hey, what was
Tony.
that? What
Sure.
was that quick reference thing you had?
The
I don't
quick
think I ever
reference?
got. Yeah, I don't think I ever got that.
Okay, this was just something we linked at the beginning because somebody was like, "Can we get like a reference to like what the classes and races are and what have you?" And so I dug up and I found this thing online. And basically just told them player handbooks 1, 2, and 3 are all you have to worry about. Everything else, like, don't worry.
Okay, cool.
Okay, let's just start off with like I don't know what I want to play, but I know that I want to be ranged.
Okay. So the question then, so basically think about it like this, guys. We're going to be running a workshop on how to create a character.
Just very basic, like how to get started and what you should look for.
Okay. You don't know what you want, but you want a ranged character.
Yeah.
Do you want ranged as in, like, ranged spells or, like, ranged weaponry?
I think spells are cooler, so spells.
Okay, so ranged spellcaster classes include things like the wizard, although the wizard plays a little bit more of, like, area of effect style.
Okay.
Now the question is also, I'm guessing because you want to do range and you want to be a spellcaster, you want to do a lot of damage, don't you?
Yeah. I want to basically be able to charge up a fireball and kill something instantly.
Sorcerer's probably a pretty good bet then. Sorcerers... So here's what makes the sorcerer the best choice for this. A lot of ranged-based attacks that play around with all the different elements and what have you. And the character is what is known as a striker, which means you channel powerful magical energy through your body, and then you can exert control over wild arcane magic to blast foes. So basically, you are going to, if you hit them, it's gonna hurt a lot,
Okay.
and it's primarily range-based.
Okay, so what race should I be then?
So, races for sorcerers tend to apply the class mods of charisma, dexterity, and strength. You want to look for things that maybe look into charisma as one of their better statistics that they can improve on. So, for instance, one of the ones that actually pops up really quick that deals with charisma in Player Handbook 2 is a gnome.
Okay.
But if you don't want to be something, short or what have you, if you have a problem with, playing a gnome character, and small characters actually do have like a whole different set of mechanics for them, which is a little bit on the strange side. For characters that have good charisma or strength or what have you, shard mines can also work as sorcerers. They're a little bit psionically flavored, but you can make them work with elemental stuff. Charisma, dragonborn sorcerers make a really good fit. Traditionally, tieflings are also pretty good as sorcerers as well. Humans are good at everything, but also good at nothing at the same time, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Halflings can also have the charisma mod as well.
Okay, let's just say
and
gnome.
half-elf.
Let's
Gnome,
just say-
okay,
that's
great.
what I go with.
So, you want to be a gnome sorcerer. Okay.
Sure.
So, in being a gnome, the things you have to worry about are that your character is considered small. So here's what being a small character means for your character. It's a little bit different, but the way that it works is that when you use a versatile weapon like a longsword, you have to use it two-handed. So versatile weapons can be used one or two-handed. If they're used two-handed, they deal additional damage. You have to use those weapons two-handed, and you don't deal the additional damage for doing so.
This is too complicated. Let's do shard mind.
Okay.
This is too much. This is too much to grasp onto for me right now. I don't want to have to deal with any of that shit. I just want to blow shit up.
Okay, great. So shard mines. What's up with shard mines? They have the ability to take 3 different languages, and so the way that it works is because you want to go with charisma. It has the ability scores of +2 intelligence and then wisdom or charisma. So I can assume you want charisma for this.
Yeah.
Okay. You get your languages, common, deep speech. You get to pick one other. Skill bonuses, which are to your different checks. You have pluses to that, and you get to choose another one as well. Telepathy, you can communicate telepathically with creatures within 5 squares of you that has any languages.
Okay.
Crystalline Mind gives you resistance to psychic damage.
Okay.
Living Construct means that you don't need to eat, drink, breathe, or sleep.
Yeah, that
So
sounds
you're,
good.
so you're basically a thing.
Yeah. Okay. That's
Because you're a
exactly. You're
construct.
basically describing me right now.
Okay.
Wait, is that an out-of-character comment or an in-character comment? Because I'm a bit confused, and I think you need to sanction him.
Smart ass.
I
You
want to
already-
make my
Well,
character
now I'll get
that.
started on that paperwork and be back with you. And
In
Yep.
I was about to say 3 to 5 working business days.
Yep.
So then you also have the Immortal Origin, which doesn't necessarily mean you can't die, because you totally can.
Mm-hmm.
But what it means is that for powers that relate to the purposes of character origin,
Mm-hmm.
your character is considered native to the Astral Sea, which is then considered an immortal.
Okay.
And then you also have the Shard Swarm power, which allows you to kind of separate yourself a little bit and give them, or allow you to get combat advantage against all targets within a burst 1 of you.
Okay. All this sounds good. So I'm gonna make this shard mine fucking sorcerer. What do I have to do now?
Okay. So we have stat allocations that need to be done for your character.
Mm-hmm.
And so you know the numbers for that. It's
I do, but I don't have a sheet open.
It's 16, 14, 13, 12, 11, and 10. And your character has +2 to intelligence and charisma. So whatever number that you apply to those two, you get +2 for those.
Charisma.
Huh?
Charisma.
Okay, now you're just fucking with me, aren't you?
No. I'm dead
Okay.
serious.
So when it comes to making the character, depending on which way you want to go with it, because we're going to go back to Sorcerer.
Yeah.
Sorcerers have 2 different spell sources from which they can draw their magic.
Mm-hmm.
They can draw from the power of dragons, or from the powers of the elemental chaos.
Chaos sounds good. Let's do that.
Okay, so you want to do the wild magic. So what's up with wild magic? They have a lot of weird dice roll-y things. So it's kind of like a chance-based class, sort of.
Okay.
So first off, you have Chaos Burst. Your first attack roll during all of your turns determines a benefit you get in that round. If
Okay.
you roll a basic even number, and keep in mind that's not the result, that's just like what the 1d20 says.
Okay.
If you roll an even number, you get a +1 to AC until the start of your next turn. If you roll an odd number, you get to make a saving throw as a free action. Saving throws help you ward off conditions and stuff.
kind of
Chaos-
wish I kind of wish this was my actual character now. This sounds cool.
I know.
Then there is Chaos Power. You gain a bonus to the damage roll of arcane powers equal to your dexterity modifier. This bonus increases as you level up, which is why dexterity can be somewhat of an important